This episode may contain trigger warnings for domestic violence and eating disorders. Hi, I'm Lozzie Marsh.
And I'm Becky Marsh.
We are two sisters from New South Wales, Australia, bringing you our podcast, The Marsh Metaphor, where we find ourselves falling into the worlds created by some of the best and aspiring authors.
In each episode, we break down the pages of our favourite books, tell you what we loved and what we didn't, and give you our predictions for what we think is in store for our favourite characters next.
Our podcast is definitely not spoiler friendly. So if you have not yet read the book in full that we discuss each episode, you might hear some things you shouldn't.
On this episode, we are jumping into the world of Prythian and we are up to book 2. And that, of course, is A Court of Mist and Fury, or ACOMAF for short. So if you have not yet read it, close down the podcast and quickly go back and read it. So let's dive in. Chapter 10, Feyre was able to shield herself from the debris from Tamlin's blast. Tamlin apologises and they have make-up sex. Feyre awakes the next day to Tamlin and Rhys arguing. When Rhys sees Feyre, he is appalled by how much weight she has lost. And Feyre has some internal dialogue about the night court being better than being locked in the spring court. Tamlin asks Rhys again to end the bargain, but he just takes Feyre and leaves.
Okay, so let's talk about this shield or this bubble that Feyre was able to use to block herself.
Yeah.
This, again, seems like an emotional response, but a really handy one.
Oh, a really handy one. I think that having this shield, to be able to cocoon yourself in a situation like that, it would just be the most amazing protection for yourself in any situation that you needed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she actually disappeared.
Yeah.
They describe it as disappearing, which is fascinating.
It's so bizarre because I don't know if this is just part of her having access to magic.
Oh, or if it's actually a gift.
If it's a gift. And see, this is where I'm going to start being really suspicious of everything Feyre can do. And I'm going to be like, is that a gift? Is that a gift? Is that a gift?
Yeah.
Until we find out
Yep.
what's normal and what's not, or what's normal magic just in general and what is extra.
Yep. How did you see it?
I saw it as like a big air shield. Like it was like there was nothing there until the bits of debris went to hit it, and it was like hitting a wall of wind that was just kind of stagnant, almost curved around her.
Yep. The way that I saw it was, so I'm seeing Tamlin with all his wrath around him, just exploding, everything like in pieces in slow motion going everywhere. And all those items are ricocheting off a genuine like bubble.
Full-on bubble.
A bubble, like how you blow a bubble out of a bubble. Like you blow on a bubble and it makes the bubble, but the colours are there. So you know when the sun...
iridescent.
Yeah, the iridescent, shiny bubble colours. And that's how I see her being surrounded by like this big bubble like that, but maybe a few extra bubbles on it.
Yeah.
But seeing those colours, those iridescent colours, so I'm seeing more her being protected by those colours. Yeah, so which is interesting because I'm connecting Feyre's protection to colour, which is really interesting, isn't it?
It absolutely is. So fitting. And when Tamlin was rampaging, I am seeing a scene, and I know that we've talked about this loosely being connected to Beauty and the Beast before, but I'm seeing a scene of Beauty and the Beast where the Beast rampages and starts breaking things. So I almost see Tamlin transforming into his beast self, into his wolf self when he's doing this. And I don't think the story actually says that he does this, but it's just what happened as soon as they started talking about this. It just became so wild and beastly that I couldn't picture anything else.
Yeah, it was such a short scene, but I think it was it stayed in a lot of people's minds.
Very impactful, yeah. And then again, rather than talk about the fact that just happened, that powerful, impactful scene just happened, they just go to the bedroom. again.
Yeah, and Feyre actually describes it, that's how they communicate, is through skin to skin. So she's actually recognised it now, which is really interesting because I'm thinking that now that she's had more interaction with Rhys, for instance, where he is a talker and he does use his mind and that's how they communicate. She's actually admitted that that's how they communicate, skin to skin. So she knows it and that's all she's going to get. So, yeah, she doesn't seem disappointed in it though.
I think she recognises it for what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that she needs to sit with that for a little while to go, what does this mean for the future of my relationship with Tamlin? Yeah.
Like she doesn't actually really talk about the future with Tamlin. She's just living in the moment and how much she dislikes that moment.
Yeah.
One thing as well that I found a little bit of fuel for thought was he says that he doesn't say what he's going through, but he says that while he's going through it. So something's going on that we don't know about. He says he needs more time to get through it. So I just wonder what that is that he's referring to. Do you know, like because you've read the story, do you know what he's referring to, or is that just a comment that didn't go any further?
I assumed when reading this that he was still going through trauma from under the mountain.
Right.
I've assumed that it is just the fact that they both had a really crappy time under the mountain.
Yep.
And, you know, he was a prisoner there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't hear from Tamlin's point of view what happened to him under the mountain. We see glimpses of him
doing nothing.
Yeah. But we don't know that when Feyre's not there, how is Tamlin treated? We don't know what that felt like for him.
Which is why I think a point of view for Tamlin's story
would be interesting.
Which is what they did with Twilight. I know with Twilight they did Edward's point of view. They did a story for him, Midnight Sun I think it was. And I liked that. Mm-hmm. It was very detailed. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking that, you know, if Tamlin's character had developed in a different way where he was loved more, like as in by the readers, I think if his character connected more further on in the story, I think there would have been room for a book for him for his point of view.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I think the way that his character is going, I think that book would be squished.
Yeah, it feels like we're phasing Tamlin out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I've just assumed that it is whatever he dealt with under the mountain.
Okay, so we don't get any reference to that later on that you know of?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, see, I just find there's a few little things like that I snatch onto and I'm like, what does that mean and why is that in there? And
is it leading to something or is it a fleeting comment?
Yeah.
And I think this is where SJM's writing is very much like that. So you start to pick out all of these pieces and go, is this something or am I clutching straws here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I always think that with writing, whatever I write, there has to be a reason for it and substance to what I'm writing. You don't waste your paper. You know, you don't waste your ink.
Or do you want to lead your readers down to
get them thinking? I guess it's different styles of writing, isn't it?
It is. I think this is probably where we start to analyse things even more so.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Absolutely.
We're very analytic in that way. And I like to, really deconstruct people's thoughts, the way that people say things and what they say. I find it really fascinating.
Yeah.
And how people work. Yeah.
So speaking of dissecting what people say, Rhys makes this passing comment when he comes to get Feyre about there not being enough food in the spring court.
Well, actually, he's right.
Well, if we think about the water wraiths, he's
right.
Yeah,
they're starving.
But
they're actually starving.
It seems like Feyre is too. So we know that it's only been a month or less. It's been 3 weeks since Rhys has brought her back because she spent that week with him. And he's noticing a difference in her, which is that she's even thinner.
Yep.
So it makes me think, how much weight has she lost? How little is she actually eating for those 3 weeks to be that impactful?
And this might be another trigger warning as well. For people who do not eat, I'm not putting them in a category as such of how everybody feels or anything like that, but I do know that there's a level of control of what goes in one's mouth.
Yeah.
And when things around you are falling apart, the level of control that you have to what goes in your body can be a really good way of controlling your environment.
So in terms of Feyre not having control over anything else in her life right now,
she's controlling what goes in her mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not about looks. It's got nothing to do with looks. It's all about control. And it's the only thing that she can control in that moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see that she's depressed for sure. She's so stressed. She's sad. One of the surefire signs of depression as well can be sleeping more. Interacting less is another one. These are not symptoms for everyone, but there is a common denominator of these things. She's just losing herself through being around Tamlin. And even though he reduced the amount of centuries that he had, it's still not doing anything for Feyre. And you'll actually notice that when Feyre is at the night court, that's when she actually eats. So she's enjoying her time more there, and she's more comfortable there, and she definitely is enjoying the food when she's there.
Yeah, and this is almost linking to those thoughts that Feyre is having about the night court being an easier place to live, because she's not being controlled. It's not as, I know that she's only been there once.
Yeah.
But it seemed that she wasn't being told at every point, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. And she has something else to focus on. Rhys has given her the task of learning to read, which is giving her something else to focus on, rather than the fact that she's not allowed to do anything else, that she just needs to sit inside and basically do nothing all day. So I feel like this is getting her mind off her trauma. When she's at the spring court, there's not a lot else for her to do apart from dwell on what she's been through.
But look, I think, having her see other parts of the night court as well, I think in the back of her mind, that's exciting to know that it's there. That's another element to the night court that I think Feyre, it would really appease her. Perhaps not at the moment, but when she is feeling better in herself and more capable, I think she's going to really enjoy that space that we find out about. Also too, it's different in so many aspects. Even though it's darker in aesthetics, it's a brighter place for her to be.
Absolutely. Like the way a star is bright in the night sky.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a great pun. So yeah, even though the spring court was springy and beautiful and alive and awake and full of flowers, it was not that way for Feyre at all.
I think because, and this is where I'm going to get super metaphorical here.
Go for it.
I think because she was just another flower in the garden there. Don't laugh at me. Where when she goes to the night court and she's against that darkness, her herself can shine brighter. That's my metaphor.
That was beautiful. Look, I love that. The thing is, like, even you are now representing what Rhys's court is. You're using your mind to create something beautiful.
Yeah.
Whereas when we were in the spring court, we couldn't do that because it was just so drowning us. So even you feel more positive going into the night court. Yeah. I feel the same. It's a breath of fresh air.
You feel smothered in
the
spring court by the colours, the flowers.
I loved it to start with.
Yeah.
But now
it's too much.
It is.
We want to go back. Let's just keep it simple.
Yep.
Blank canvas.
Give us darkness.
And a bit of twinkling in there.
We've got so many elements that are just so cool. You've got that darkness, that vibe. You've got the inside of where we get taken first is just so cool. And then you go to this other place. That is so cool. I'm just really loving the whole area, and I'm really loving Rhys's vibe. Yeah. And it's just where I want to be. I really want to get through these chapters, and I'm hoping that Tamlin just dissipates into his own world.
Into the ether.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and speaking of Tamlin, he does request again for the bond to be broken. And this is where we're all crossing our fingers that Rhys doesn't say yes. I can't imagine he would. But could you imagine if he goes, yeah, okay.
But do you know what he bargains with? He bargains with something.
Yeah.
So he bargains with a gift.
Yeah.
He wants to give, he says to Rhys, anything that you want to break the curse, I'll give you anything you want. Rhys says, I've got everything I need.
Yeah.
Now, isn't that fantastic response? Rhys is not a gifty person. He's just not that way inclined.
He is not that way inclined. And I think the other thing is he sees more value in Feyre than anything Tamlin could give him. Anything tangible that Tamlin could give him.
Yeah, I really wonder whether they will romantically be involved. I'm wondering whether that will happen.
Or will it just be a really nice friendship?
Yeah, like I think in my mind I was hoping that it would turn into something romantic for Feyre, because at the end of the day everyone wants a fairy tale. And I think for Feyre I really wanted a fairy tale for her. But we'll see.
We will see. We will see. Chapter 11. Feyre can tell she's lost weight when she gets to the night court and puts her night court clothes on and they are loose. Rhys spends time with her despite being busy. He says he will always make time for her. They talk about a spike of fear that came through the bond, which was from Tamlin's outrage, and Rhys isn't happy, but Feyre doesn't want to talk about it. Rhys does tell her that she is getting better at mental shielding. Then they talk about Rhys's offer to train her and help with the looming war, but Feyre refuses, as she doesn't want to upset Tamlin further. They then discuss whether Tamlin can see or cares about what is happening to Feyre, and she tells him he does, but he's just giving her space to sort it out herself. She continues with the reading lessons through the week and is taken back to the spring court when the week is up. Tamlin continues with his overprotective behaviour. So I'm still really angry that Feyre is still refusing to help with this war because of Tamlin. I want her to be in a mind space where she is confident enough to give us her thoughts about it, not Tamlin's. We know Tamlin doesn't want her to train, but what does she want? I want to know what she's thinking. Is this something that's actually interesting for her? Is this something that she's actually considering? Or would she do it if she didn't have Tamlin breathing down her neck, so to speak? Or is she using Tamlin as an excuse to not train because she doesn't actually want to? But how do you tell someone, I don't actually want to help you with the war?
I mean, there's lots of elements there that we don't know enough about. We don't have a date for this war. So I feel like Feyre is holding out. I feel like she's just got so much healing to do in herself that she needs this reprieve. So she's been almost using Tamlin as a scapegoat to be able to not be present in anything, in any real conversation about anything real. I don't know enough about where she is at to know whether she actually wants to fight, because she's had a lot of, like we've said, she's had a lot of trauma around fighting, and we know that she only hunted to survive.
Yeah.
So she's not a hunter to unalive things for the sake of it. So as long as there's a good cause, I think that she will be there for it.
Yeah, because we see her reaction to unaliving those Fae under the mountain. And so hunting...
Devastating.
Yeah, hunting for sport is not her forte.
No.
It is definitely a survival instinct that she has, and a good one at that. Like, she's so good at it. And this is where, I'd love for her to actually have a thought that is not controlled by Tamlin.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know, it's funny because I see her as, if someone gave her an archery set, I think that she would be really good at archery, like Olympic style.
Yeah.
I think that if she was able to be so precise with shooting that arrow through the wolf's eye in book 1, I just think that she would be incredibly accurate, to do that. So, yeah, give her a hobby of archery.
Yeah, or just something to focus on.
She's good with her hands.
So I think she needs more mental stimulation to actually pull herself out of this funk that she's found herself in.
She really does, and I think she will.
And then Feyre mentioning about Tamlin just giving her space to work her stuff out. is I feel like she's making excuses for him. So I feel like if I was in Tamlin's shoes and I was supposedly in love with Feyre and I could see what she was going through, there would be a point where I've gone, you know what, you've had enough time to work your stuff out yourself. You're going backwards. You're losing weight. You're not eating. You're obviously in this spiral at the moment. And so I'm intervening. And you can hate me all you want for it, but this is to benefit you. I think that when you live with someone with mental illness, you need to know when to step in and when not to. And Tamlin is just putting his blinkers on and ignoring it. It's like he just thinks it's too hard to deal with and too much drama. So he is just going, oh, I'll give you space to sort out whatever you need to do.
To be honest, I don't even think that he knows that she's losing weight. I think that he is too busy being wrapped up in his own world and his meetings that he has going on that I don't even believe that he has noticed that she's lost weight.
See, that's even worse.
I think that he is that selfish that he hasn't noticed.
He's very inward, Tamlin. He's very focused on himself. And I feel like he cares too much about what people think about him.
I almost feel sorry for his character, the way that it's going. Yeah. I feel a bit sad almost because he could have been a really beautiful character.
Beautiful court and a beautiful character, but it's really
tarnished.
Tainted.
Yeah.
And then seeing Rhys so worried about Feyre and, you know, how much weight she's lost and all of that is really showing that lighter or softer side to Rhys that we keep seeing these touches, these glimpses of. And I really want to see a little bit more of that. I want him to keep his darkness and keep that, you know, ability to switch into that don't mess with me kind of character. But at the same time, I feel like him showing that softer side to Feyre and only Feyre is super sweet.
Yeah, he's definitely got a different relationship with Feyre than what he does with other females, like Moore and everything. But obviously their relationships are different, but he definitely has some sort of affection for Feyre.
Yeah.
The way that he does treat her. And I guess if she is going to be fighting in the war, which is what he's put to her, that's a possibility, that one of the vested interests he has about her would be making sure she's healthy, making sure that weight is sustainable for her.
Yeah.
Because it's an important part of being strong is to be healthy. And if she's losing so much weight, that also means that she's got no sustenance. So she would be weak.
Yeah.
Like physically feeling weak.
It's that vested interest with Rhys. He always just seems to have something else going on in his mind. Like what you see on the surface, there always seems to be something, just a few layers in another reason.
Yep. It's how his mind is, isn't it? Just full of layers.
That's all we have time for this episode. Thank you for listening to our episode. If you want to keep up with the latest of what we are up to and more book recommendations, make sure you follow us on all social platforms.
We cannot wait to bring you the next episode where we will go through the next chapters of A Court of Mist and Fury. Until then, bye.